Hi everyone, my name is Karuna, and if you are interested in knowing more about Armenian duduk or even buying one, you are at the right place. This is my Armenian duduk channel. Welcome. Today I want to speak about those leather strips which you can see on every Armenian duduk reed. Usually they are in different colors depending on what leather the maker managed to get, usually from internet. You see many colors, almost every reed has its own color, not everyone, but usually I can recognize them, the maker of the reed, by the color of those leather strips. So I know those space gray are Ovanes reeds, and those chocolate browns are like from Sevak, and those titanium white are from Arman, like iPhones, you know, like the essence is same but the colors are different. So, and this leather is called chevron. The word originates from French, from the French language, and in French it's probably chevron, something like that, and it means goat. So this is a goat skin, and this goat skin comes from the softest part of the animal, somewhere from the throat, I guess, and it is used mostly for producing very soft leather things like gloves and bags and maybe something else, I'm not sure. And what you see on the reed is actually not the full piece of that skin, I mean in terms of the thickness, because the material is quite thick, and for the reed maker to be able to use it on the reed, this thick piece of leather should be like one layer should be disattached from another one. So they take a very sharp knife and they go like in the middle of that leather piece, and then they disattach the upper layer from the lower layer, and then that upper layer goes onto the reed. So why so? Because they need a really thin material here, and that material still must be durable enough and flexible enough to give us all the qualities which we want when we play the duduk reed. The first question, why these leather strips are here? The first reason, and the main reason, is because of the way how the reed is produced. So the reed maker, he takes a reed plant which looks like this. It is round, like the piece is round. He cuts it like in a small short piece, and then he has to flatten it. And while flattening the reed, most probably the reed would crack on both sides. They have to close that area here. The cracks could be superficial and also through the material, like a through crack. In both cases they do this. Sometimes it's really through, and they have to do that because otherwise the air would start leak. While making the reed, when the maker flattens it, and if the crack does not appear, actually they prefer to make the crack artificially. If it is not appearing on the material just by flattening, they just make that crack and they try to make it in the middle, because if they don't do it in the future, they cannot be sure that the crack would not happen somewhere else. And it is not good if the crack happens here close to the lips of the reed, because what happens if the crack comes closer to the lips will be not straight anymore. So a good reed has normally straight lips, and if the crack would happen here close to the lips would kind of go like that, you know, not be like that, but kind of go like that, like this. So they prefer to do it by themselves in the middle and then close it with the leather, and then they're sure it will work. And if the crack goes further, like towards the bottom of the reed, they use a longer leather strip, you see. But sometimes some makers, they don't do that. For example here, I don't know if you can see, you see the crack goes further, the leather strip is quite short here. So important is not really how long is that leather strip, but if the crack is through or not. And in many cases it is not through, and it will never be through, in fact. Here, you see. Therefore, the makers, they do it like that. Sometimes I say longer strips, sometimes shorter strips, sometimes some of the reeds don't have that crack here, further closer to the bottom, nowhere, and sometimes they do have. For example, this is one of my best reeds from Hovig, from Ovanes, and you see on both sides you can see that crack. Important is that the crack is not through, otherwise you can just use it normally, and don't be afraid when you get some good expensive reeds with that crack. So if no air leaks, that's alright. But if the air starts leaking, for example, recently I had one case when the customer gave me the feedback that one of the reed was leaking air. Here actually, just close to the logo, it was like leaking air, not this maker, another one. And the response of the maker was just take some of the glue and put some thin layer of the glue on the crack, and it will solve the problem in 1 minute. So this is not a big deal if somewhere is even a little bit leaking. If you realize that your pitch ring is too much tight, that it rips off the leather, then maybe you take some knife and you cut it a little bit from inside the pitch ring. I mean, like you polish it here, maybe with some sandpaper, even, that it doesn't tear off the leather. If it happens to you that you rip off or you tear off one of those strips, you can go on internet and, as I said, you can buy Chevro and try to detach one layer from another, and then you can use it. But then you have to pay for the whole piece of Chevro, of course. Another suggestion, if it happens in your case, just next time when you order new reeds from this or that maker, ask the maker or the reseller, like myself, to ask the maker that together, along with your new reeds, he just puts a couple of strips of that leather into the parcel. For the maker, it is really not that much. He can afford it. Every maker can afford it because they have lots of those Chevro pieces. Just do it. This is my suggestion how you can solve it. Maybe if you want to go vegan, let's say, I remember 1 or 2 times in the past I got those requests from you guys that the customer asked me, okay, I'm vegan, I'm raw vegan, and I want some reeds but without leather, or if possible with some vegan leather. And then I contacted every single reed maker that I knew at that time with that question: could you please make a reed without leather, or if it is not possible, please make a reed with some vegan leather. And I saw so much resistance, guys. Armenians are very, very conservative in the way of making duduk and reeds, and you cannot just come to them with a new idea and say, please, can you do that? And then I try to convince, and like today it's a kind of fashion, let's say a trend, to go vegan, especially in Europe and the United States. Please, can you please maybe do something? And then the maker Arman, I remember he agreed, okay, I will do that. So I managed to convince him I will do that, but it took him so much time, so I was really like feeling pity about him, that it really took him a lot of time to make some reeds without leather. And then at the end, still he was unsatisfied with his work, because he was not sure how the reeds would behave in future. Now I asked maker Arvishti what would be his answer if it is possible to fix the reed by yourself by applying some insulation tape, I mean some electrical tape, maybe some vegan leather. The answer is probably yes, you can try, you will see it yourself, but try to find a very flexible, durable and very thin material to do that. What kind of glue do they take for this? In Russia here and in Armenia, we have the same type of glue. It's a medical glue. Maybe in some action movies you see some kind of Rambo guy who got cut his arm, and then he just presses his tissue together, and then he takes some glue and then he puts the glue inside, and then he does like this, and then the tissue kind of holds. So this is a medical glue. In Russia we call it BF. BF, we say BF. It should be waterproof and it should be medical. Also, this leather improves the timbre of the sound, especially on soft reeds. So another reason the leather is here is for making the so-called spring. When we play the reed, we want it to vibrate more, to kind of be wider in its range of vibration, and we call it spring. Like when you move your lips, what happens with the reed? Does the reed behave properly, or like this motion is not that good? Basically, what the reed maker Arvishti told me today, the process of making duduk reed is very intuitive. It's like the reed maker, he of course has some understanding, some like basic knowledge how this all works together, but when he really sits and works with a particular material, he does a lot of things intuitively. At some cases he needs to make the walls of the reed thinner, and then in that case he uses the chevron, which is a little bit thicker, and in another case he uses the walls of the material thicker, and then he uses the chevron, which must be thinner. Those things, he said, it's not easy to explain, it's impossible to explain, he said, because it's like very much artist work, intuitive work. That was Karuna. See you in my next videos. Ciao, ciao.